Hello and welcome to the Dreaming and Doing podcast with me, Nicky Raby. I'm an actor, coach, writer, speaker, podcaster and a mum. And in my coaching work, I work with creatives, personal brands, freelancers and small businesses. In my podcast, I talk about success, but not in a traditional sense. I have conversations with those who have built a business from something they love or who have made a pivot in their career. Also those who have built a brand or a job that maybe didn't exist when they were at school and they found a way to monetize their skills, talents and expertise. I've spoken to loads of incredible people, coaches, designers, journalists, app creators, magazine editors, bloggers, content creators, authors, and all-round movers and shakers. I ask the questions that you want to know the answer to. So, how they started, about money, saying no, saying yes, pitching, presenting, putting yourself out there even though it terrifies you, standing out in a busy online world, growing, scaling and making your work for you and your circumstances. The show notes are always at nickyraby.com/podcast and the conversation continues across social media, often on Instagram, my favourite platform, at Nicky Raby. Thanks so much for listening. It's great to have you with us. In today's episode, I'm talking to Nicola Burke, who you may know as We Slice across social media. When I first found her feed, I was all in. She makes me laugh, she makes me cry, and she's just as lovely during our chat as well. In the conversation, we talk about social media, what it means, how we want to share our lives online, but what goes on behind the scenes. It's a really interesting one. So do come and join in the conversation across social media. Yes, of course, I get the irony. Yes, you can come and find me at Nicky Raby, or the show notes, as always, are nickyraby.com/podcast, and everything that you need is all there. Also as well, if you're looking at thinking ahead for the coming year and you want some guidance, I've got loads of online courses, but also I'm starting to book some events and VIP days. So if you do want some one-to-one support as well, do get in touch and me or my team will get back to you and we'll talk further. Thanks so much for listening. As always, please rate, review, subscribe and all that good stuff and enjoy. Hiya, Nicola. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I just went into kind of newsreader then, but I will stop and I will go on a different tangent. How would you describe what you do? Where are you up to in your life? Big question.
Right now, I've got like an immediate sweat on, which has just come on all of a sudden.
You're like Kate Moss in that Christmas Vogue video when you're like, I need to get this cashmere off, guys. Can we reset?
Honestly, I've got. I'm reaching for the tissues to put them under my armpits as we speak. Where am I up to? It's a good question. Where am I up to in my life right now? I guess I'm at that funny stage of coming to the end of the period of time since having kids that you can refer to as kind of the postpartum, when you would then kind of expect to go back to work and all the rest of it. And I'm in that kind of funny period where it's just a bit like, kind of the wee guy's almost 2. So it's like, what are you? Are you a stay-at-home mum? Are you, going to do some work stuff now? And I'm in that kind of uneasy hybrid of the both, I would say, is where I am at the moment. That's where I'm at.
But you have built up a lovely community, and you have people who are sharing and showing you, and you're doing things all the time in a great way, and certainly brightening my day.
That's really kind of you, thank you. Yeah, the community that I've built up is crazy. It's a weird one because I feel like I'm such a kind of small fish in a humongous ocean that is social media, but similarly you realise how tiny the world is when you go out. I mean, I went to a place a couple of weeks ago, a nearby village, to go to a little rugby class for the children.
I was going to say, for you, I was like, what a move to make.
Oh, honestly, a car pulled up next to us and the mum got out. She was going to the class too and she turned and she went, oh, it's actual We Slice. And I was just like, I was like, I'm not Madonna. Like, how is this even a thing? Like, I don't, so yeah, I find it bizarre how I can kind of be pottering about doing my thing, and people will come up to me and be like, this is really weird. I'm really sorry, but are you E-Slice? And I'm like, what is this even?
Can you imagine if you were like, no, I'm not, but I am this like other person? But yeah, what made you kind of want to start posting and starting a social media life?
So I was on Instagram forever, and kind of not really doing anything overly exciting with it. And then probably, where are we now? August, September, October. So last May, a year past May, when I was off on mat leave, I decided to start a blog. I knew lots of people that were doing it, and I'd always wanted to, and I did my usual and spent a year pontificating over it and not actually launching it and doing anything. So I could well have been the Zoella of my slightly older generation, perhaps, but if I hadn't stalled on it for so long, who knows? But
I think she basically got the idea from you. I think that's the whole thing. You
honestly, bitch ripped me off. That's it. So I pushed the button on it, and yeah, it's one of those, I always feel like I could do so much more with it, but it's always the kind of time restrictions that come around with having small people that you need to look after. Everything feels like a little bit of a half job and a rush job. So it just, I never had any kind of set plan I was doing. I mean, the thing for me, there's so many people out there that are fashionistas, that are kind of beauty bloggers, that are traveling, that are doing all these really, really exciting things. And if you're not one of those people, it's just a little bit like, well, where do I fit in around that? I can't put together amazing outfits. I'm not about to do a tutorial on, the perfect winged eyeliner, but where do I kind of fall in? So very quickly I decided that I really liked hearing other people's stories. So that's something that I've always kind of championed on my blog is, I'm relatively interesting, but I'm not that interesting. Ergo, tell me about you. So, I did a blog post kind of recently on a lady who gave me her story. She'd been in a cult in Scotland, and she'd escaped from this cult. And, I got loads of really good feedback from that story. I've got one that I'm actually just about to post. It's a third installment from a lady I know. She posts anonymously, and it's about infertility. And she posts in the most amazing tone. It's kind of humorous. It's really relatable. For something that is such a taboo topic and such a kind of notoriously difficult thing to talk about, the way she approaches it is just incredible.
Yeah, and I feel like we all need to have a nice chat. Gone are the days of sort of popping into somebody next door. We're all so spread out. So I think social media has just been mega that it feels like you're having a cup of tea with somebody, even though you're on your own.
It does. It makes it difficult for you to feel lonely. If you work at it and you find a little community for yourself, a little tribe, I think it's really, really lovely. But unfortunately, some people don't get it. My other half doesn't at all. But he's a good few years older than I am. He's a bit of a Luddite, doesn't really do tech, and he, can't really get his head around it. I mean, he's supportive in his own way, but he's just, kind of regarding Saturday, it's like, oh, you're having fun with your internet friends. It's one of those.
Yeah, like you kind of found them in a chat room somewhere. And,
I know. And it's like we're all sitting there with like, dirty, thick-rimmed glasses on with, greasy raincoats and rucksacks on. And I'm like, you don't.
Watching reruns of Countdown going, yeah, this is really great. It's only just come to me, but my friend actually had a pen pal when we were at school in Poland that she'd met in a chat room, and she actually came to the UK to stay, which felt very progressive for about 1993, and suddenly this chick just rocked up from Poland, and then my friend went back to see her, and it was just and then the other day we were passing through Hitchin. I was with my mum, and she sort of wistfully said, I had a pen pal once in Hitchin, and I was a bit like, I had so many questions, like, is this a euphemism? What is this Hitchin story?
Pen pals were totally a thing. Yeah. I was fully on board with that movement as well. Oh, happier times. I tell you what, the days of pen pals, simpler times.
I'll send you a bookmark if you send me back a rainbow rubber. That would be great.
That's it.
And not like a rainbow rubber, like an actual eraser. Not that kind of pen pal. What did you do before?
What did I do before? So I've always been in kind of a sales function. I did event management for about 5 years. I did it freelance. I set up my own little agency. So I guess that's served me quite well for doing Slice and City stuff that I have. I got into booze sales. I decided that I really liked, while doing events, I really liked the kind of brand activations for drinks brands. So I did some stuff for Sailor Jerry Rum and loved the brand. And then I found out who the distributor was. And then I kind of stalked them incessantly until a role became available, because they're kind of dead man's shoes. When you want to work in the booze industry, everyone wants to do it because you basically get paid to have fun for a living, to be honest. So I eventually got it, and I looked after the east coast of Scotland. So it basically involved going around cocktail bars, really nice restaurants, really nice hotels, and talking to them about their cocktail menu. Doing some trainings on the brands. Hendrick's Gin was another one I did. Some whiskies. So that's what I did. So when I had kids, pretty much back to back mat leave. I mean, I went back 3 months pregnant. Was back for a wee while and then off again. So by the time I went back, having had the two kids, I was not the same person that I'd been, a couple of years previous. So I went back and I was there for 2 or 3 months, and I was just having a meltdown left, right, and centre. And I was just like, I can't go to new bar openings. I can't get excited about a new cocktail serve at 10 o'clock in the morning when, I was up at 5 a.m.
And these kids are underage, it's not physically going to work.
Yeah, with poop up to my elbows, it's difficult for me to get enthusiastic about your event that you're holding. No, sorry. So it just didn't work. I just wasn't that person anymore. So I had to walk away from it. And since then, I've been kind of messing around with a few bits and pieces, deciding what my direction is that I'm going to take.
And tell me about your events that you've been doing, because they just look so lovely and like full of really nice people. That's not meant to sound boring, but like in a kind of just everybody could have a brilliant time.
Yeah, it started as a joke, because I went so off the back of leaving work, I decided that I quite enjoyed being a bit of a social media nerd. So I did a 6-month distance learning with digital mums that was social media management, and I really enjoyed it, with a view to launching my own consultancy, which I'm on the cusp of doing once I finish the 50th round of edits for my branding that I'm going to do. So I did that, and I went down to London for a final part of the course, and I made a joke on Instagram. I said I was coming down to London, and a few people messaged me saying, if you're around, I'd love a catch up, I'd love to meet you. People that I'd been messaging back and forth. And I made a kind of offhand comment saying, I should really do a meet and greet, based on the DMs. And people came back and said, I would totally come to that. And then Apex Hotels DM'd me and said, if you want to do an event in London, we'd love to host you. This is our venue. We could do some nibbles for you. And I was like, whoa.
You were like, nibbles? I am in.
I was like, hang on a second. And then I was like, oh, hang on. I was like, my other half owns a distillery. We've got nibbles. We could do some cocktails. And it just grew arms and legs and tentacles. And within a week, I had this event, 40 people came along. We had the drinks, we had the nibbles, we had goodie bags. Really, really beautiful little bits and pieces from independent businesses that had been offered up. And it was really, there was a ton of learnings, because I got overexcited, and I implemented a creche and all sorts. To be honest, I can't even speak about it now, because I think I've got PTSD.
Yeah.
But
you went like Frank from Father of the Bride, like you had live geese, the whole shebang.
It was a little bit like that. Yeah. And so for the Edinburgh one that we just had, there was a couple of tweaks. I pulled it back ever so slightly, but we had double the people, and yeah, it was just a really beautiful thing. And what I like about it is I kind of still don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what it is, but each time I get feedback from it, I'm getting a clearer idea of what it could be. So I haven't kind of put them out there yet. I've had some really lovely DMs, and it's generally around people who have got really quite bad anxiety, whether it is that they've, they're a recently, a kind of fairly recent mum, or whatever it may be in their life. They've kind of come out of this period where they're just feeling a little bit anxious. They've not kind of been putting themselves out there socially as much as they perhaps might have in the past. And it seems to be a really nice environment for them to come along and just hang out with some like-minded ladies and just have a little bit of a chat and a little bit of fun. And what really pleased me and kind of surprised me was when I saw the tickets. About 70% of the tickets were for just people on their own who were coming.
Oh.
And I loved that, because what it means is everyone arrives, pretty much everyone's in the same wee boat, and you just kind of waddle around the different bits. And so there was a lady there who was doing some glitter face painting, Lynette Fantouche face. So she was doing glitter face paint for people. There was a lady there, Sandy, who'd brought feather headdresses and pom-pom earrings. And we had a girl who offered up her services for free to be a DJ, which was incredible. So you just kind of wander around and you just get to chat to people. And what ends up after about an hour is you have all these little hubs of people just sitting around, just having a wee chat together and having a laugh. And it just seems to work really, really well. And I kind of can't quite believe how well it went, but it was lovely, and everyone was just so bloody nice, like ridiculously nice.
I think you've touched on such a brilliant thing about anxiety, is that we're all, my goodness, yeah, that thing about after having a baby, or, when you suddenly get to a point of life where you're like, oh, I can't just rock up at college and find all of these millions of people that I can potentially be friends with. You've really got to find the friends yourself, and that can be really scary. And also your time is really limited, so you don't want to go to invest in a thing and then you're like, oh no, these are not my people. Or so it's such a testament to you that people just felt like that they could go on their own and not be scared.
Yeah, I think so. And I think when you're in your 20s, you've got all these wee socials with your friends, whether it's from school, from further education, from work, whatever it may be. But as we get older in our 30s and 40s, life gets in the way. And I mean, I know that I've got I'm so lucky to have a couple of really tight groups of friends, but we're lucky if we see each other, a couple of times a year now, and it's really ridiculous. So I think when you're a grown up, in inverted commas, it becomes that much more difficult to get together. So if this can be a little bit in between, where you can kind of get out there and meet some new people, then all the better.
Definitely. How did you go about sort of setting it up? I know people go, oh, that sounds cool, I'd quite like to do that. What are the pitfalls? What do you need to look out for?
It all just happens. It sounds ridiculous, but I mean, people, in terms of the venue, so I used the same group of hotels this time because they're really, really supportive of me, and really lovely. So the minute you have a venue, it's then just kind of filling in the empty space. So I decided I wanted someone to do music, and I found that the day before, which was great. The face painting thing, I'd worked on a job with Lynn before and I loved her, so I booked her for it immediately. And then the kind of little items around it, that's just small businesses approaching me, saying they would love to be involved. So, it's difficult in terms of it's time consuming, and there's always that little bit of anxiety of what if no one actually wants to come.
Yes.
But then this time, because I made an actual ticketed event this time, I knew I wanted to affiliate with the charity as well. So I picked someone local. I picked Make Seconds Count, which is a charity to raise awareness and funding for secondary breast cancer, because it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, the funding for breast cancer research, only circa 5 to 7% of that funding goes to secondary breast cancer, and that is what people die from. It's when it goes into other areas of your body, that's kind of what kills the majority of people. So it's kind of staggering that they don't get the support that they need. So it was lovely to be able to pick them and have them come along on the day and do a bit of chat. So I would look to kind of continue that at further venues, to partner with a kind of small charity that's local, that you can really see the difference it makes by supporting them.
Absolutely. And just using your platform for good is always just I feel like that with the podcast. I really feel like a huge responsibility to tell lots of different stories and share different kinds of women and men and different circumstances, and not just make it, traditional or the same as everybody else. In terms of building your social media, how have you done that, or how would you recommend other people? Because I think sometimes people feel like, oh, everything's been done already, or how do you keep it interesting for yourself?
Oh, are you kidding me, Nikki? It changes every day. Especially after the weekend, because it was so big, you immediately have this huge come down from it, and you're just like, oh, what can I put out next that's not going to be, boring by comparison? So I would say you need to just not overthink things, which is ironic because that's what I'm currently doing. So you just need to, it's all the usual cliches, you know, it's just kind of stay in your lane. It's find what you enjoy, what you're good at. Don't try and emulate other people. You know, you're always going to find people on social media who are doing something that you want to do and they appear to be doing it better. You know, you can kind of be envious of that, but you know, I would say pay kind of homage to what they do if they're doing something, you know, for example, like I love doing stories. So, you know, when I see people that are doing brilliant things on stories, whether it be a little bit of tech geekery or just something really funny or whatever it may be, you know, I love to kind of share that so that other people can go over and have a look and enjoy it too. So I think it's just knowing what you enjoy and just stick with it. But it's so difficult because it's such a, I mean, it's a sensory overload, you know, and there's people on it who are incredible about what they do. But then it comes down to the usual thing of what's real and what's not. And I think it's just about finding a balance. And I think the tide will turn on it a little bit. You know, these overly curated feeds, while they have their place, I don't know, the work excuse me, the work that goes into it, I find it kind of exhausting when I try to do things that are really overly edited, or, you know, I've kind of come up with this big idea and I want to do, it takes a whole bloody day and it's just a ball ache. And it's so much easier if you just do something that's a little bit real, a little bit honest, not quite as pretty. But of course, the flip side to that is brands don't want to necessarily partner with you on that. So to those people who are doing the beautiful things and they're getting paid all the big bucks, I absolutely salute you. But unfortunately, I'm not that person. You know, I make nothing from Instagram. You know, I have a couple of little affiliate links set up, but I'll be honest with you, I don't even kind of where to find them to try and reap the benefits of them having been used. Yeah. So that's the issue as well, is if you want to monetize it, if you actually, especially if you spend a lot of time on it, it's the question of, you know, how do you do that?
Well, I think people are starting to get called out now. Like, they'll go, oh, you weren't wearing that dress when I saw you earlier. And then people then have to write in the comments like, oh, no, this was taken last October. And then it's just kind of, people are sort of questioning it a bit more, because otherwise before, I think we'd have just seen a beautiful picture and gone, God, they must be having a really great day. And actually, exactly, that day was not today. What are you looking for when you go on these on these social media things? What are you craving?
What am I craving? I kind of like the comic relief of it. So I like the people that just kind of have a bit of fun with it. For sure. But I also like to learn from it. I mean, the difficulty for me is that I have the emotional breaking strain of a soggy digestive biscuit. So when you have these posts from people who are going through things that, quite honestly, my tiny mind cannot even begin to fathom, you know, it can be really quite punchy. I mean, even just in my DMs at the moment, there's a few people I'm speaking to, and for whatever reason, they're going through some really, really horrendous stuff health-wise. And you just feel so, obviously you feel so gutted for them, but you feel so frustrated because, you know, I kind of want to jump inside my phone, and, you know, one girl's in Hong Kong and I literally want to jump inside my phone and jump out of it in Hong Kong and just give her a hug, and you can't do it. And I think it's hard because you become quite emotionally involved. And I know certainly over the last few months I've probably pulled back a little bit from my DMs because, again, that's another thing that you can just get completely sucked into and spend a lot of time on. But it's not, you know, you need to focus on your own life at the end of the day. And when you find yourself kind of brooding too much, thinking too much about these situations of other people, that ultimately you can't really help. You know, you're not down the road. You can't go around and hold their hand and, you know, watch an episode of Friends with them and, you know, take it away for half an hour. So I think that's hard. And it's certainly something over the last wee while, as I say, I've tried to pull back from a little bit because it can be quite emotionally draining and it can be quite time consuming.
Definitely, and especially when you've got young kids as well. There's generally quite a lot of stuff going on anyway in sort of general life. Do you have rules about what your own boundaries are or what you would and wouldn't post about? Because I think sometimes there's this thing of like being real. And, you know, back in the day with Big Brother, people used to say things like, I'm being the real me. And you're like, oh, the fact that you've even had to say it just shows that you're not. And it's a weird, contrived thing. Do you, because I guess when I started this podcast, I really had to think about, okay, what do I want to talk about? What do I like talking about? And also, what am I not really willing to share? And what wouldn't I want in the Daily Mail? Not that they've been calling, but, you know, I took it to the extreme.
Of course. Yeah, no, for sure. I've recently kind of gone back to my phone. I've archived any pictures that were in it of my kids. That's something that my other half, Big Slice, and I've always kind of butted heads about historically, because he's vehemently against them being on social media. And it's only very recently that I've kind of completely come around to his point of view on it. And I spotted the other day, and I'll kick myself because I can't remember her name. I'll need to look back through my screenshots. But someone did a great post basically saying why she'd removed all traces of her daughter from her grid. And it just kind of struck quite a few chords with me. I mean, there was quite a few different points to it, but, you know, one of them that really sat with me was, you know, this is around potentially forever. Do you, knowing how horrible kids can be and knowing how rife bullying is, do you want images of your child to be out there that their peers can find and ridicule them for? And I kind of thought to myself, you know, as someone who had the absolute, you know, piss taken out of them all through school, I kind of thought to myself, God, there's some really hideous, you know, funny, but kind of not particularly gorgeous pictures I've got up of them, because it's funny at the time and it's kind of real. But if I was Lola at age 15, how would I feel if someone had found that and was laughing about it? I wouldn't feel that great. So yeah, so I got rid of it all, and it really, I must find it. I mean, it'll ruffle quite a few feathers if I post it. I know it will, because so many people are parenting bloggers, and, you know, lots of people use their grids to kind of, I guess, keep somewhere safe to keep the photos, you know, because maybe rather than just having them on their phone, it's a bit of a backup having them on there, whatever it may be. So it'll probably piss a lot of people off if I post it and say that I like what this woman said, but there was probably half a dozen points that she made, and there was a good few of them that I just thought, that's.
And when you see it in black and white, you're like, oh, now I can put my finger on it. Now I'm sort of getting what it's all about. And I think, it only takes a couple of layers back to kind of remember what those pig dogs of bullies were like. That it's just
sure.
It's
for sure. And I think when you don't put pictures of your kids up as well, it forces you to kind of look at yourself a little bit more and remind yourself what it is that you were into before you had kids, because they're all consuming. And so it's about thinking, well, I used to be really into that, so why don't I post a little bit about that instead? Or, you know, it just changes the landscape a little bit, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, and I think with some people is that it's such a part of their business model, as in being part of the brand. And you know, Matt and I both have acting backgrounds, and people will say, have you got Oscar an agent? I'm like, no, because he's not even 3, and he is not that, like, can I just sing you a show tune? Like, he's quite shy and kind of chilled, really. And also it would just feel wrong for me in sort of, I feel like I know too much and about the industry, and if he wants to do it, he can when he's older, of course. Like, I will be his momager. But no, I just kind of, until he's ready and wants to be part of that world, if he should want to, then we'll just leave it. We'll just talk about fire engines in the meantime.
Yeah, it's his choice. I mean, it's back to I mean, I remember when Chris Evans was doing TFI Friday, when he brought it back, and his wee boy, who must have been, I don't know how old, I'm guessing all of like 5 or something, and he had him on kind of presenting, doing little bits in between his. And on one hand, I was just like, oh, that's really cute. He's kind of brought him in. But on the other hand, I was just like, what makes you think that he, like, there's no need for you to bring your 5-year-old on presenting on kind of Friday night TV at all. You know, are you just doing it because you can, Or is it because at the age of 5 he sees you and he's told you in no uncertain terms that he knows himself and he knows that that's what he wants to do for a living and he wants to emulate your career? I just find it, clearly I've been overthinking it too much, but I just find it really interesting. I just thought, gosh, that's kind of a bold move, Chris, like to bring him on and
you're right, because my mum was one of the judges on the 500 words book competition thing, and when she went to like the finals in Hampton Court, and he was on the stage kind of doing a bit of a turn, not like a dance routine or anything, but he was very much part of it. And my mum was like, he was, you know, quite serious about things. She was like, it wasn't appropriate that he was there and he had a shining role, because it was these other kids who were like, I can't believe we've been on a bus to London, you know. It's sort of,
it was about them, wasn't about him. And it's got, I mean he could turn around, you know, as a spoiled brat of, you know, 14, 15, 16 and say, you know, school's been great, I don't want to go to uni, I want to get into presenting and I want to kind of do what you've done, Dad, which is brilliant. But yeah, I kind of don't, I mean, yeah, I don't want to be a cow about it, but I was just a little bit surprised when I first saw it, and I thought, why would you put that lifestyle upon him at such a young age when you have the power to say, I don't want you in the public eye? You can do that when you're, you know, a teenager, whatever it may be.
When you're old enough to know better.
But side note, I love Chris Evans. I just want to make that point clear. There's absolutely no shade being thrown.
And then it will kind of come out of you saying, I was part of the firing process that he's now lost his job, because Zoe Ball's been announced today. But
I know, Zoe.
I've already had a chat with my mum, and she said, I was hoping for Sarah. I'm like, oh, we're so familiar, but she's like, I'm very happy with the decision. I'm like, because
I'm afraid for me it was either Lisa Tarbuck or Trevor Nelson. That's who I wanted. It was no one other.
Either of
both
those
of whom
good.
would never have got it and would never have wanted it. But I like to dream. I like to dream.
Yeah, well, Lisa was such a brilliant, like, I think she was on the Saturday slot in the afternoon, and it was just such a moment of when I was mourning my Saturday nights out, she was there going, it's all right, I'm here, don't worry.
I know, she's just bananas. She's just terrific.
She is, and I was just like, I'll just make pesto pasta and sit on the sofa, it's fine. But I've got one final question, which is like, where would you like to be in like 5 years' time? Do you have a life plan?
Yeah, I feel like I kind of do. Where would I like to be in 5 years' time? So from doing my events, I really love working with small businesses, with independent businesses, and I want to launch my consultancy, and I want to help small businesses kind of work smarter, not harder, so that their social grows the way they want it to help their business grow. That's where I'd really like to be. Is still there, still as We Slice, but and probably still blogging in some capacity. But yeah, I'd like to be a little bit of a go-to for helping you boost your business social, I guess.
Yeah, you're right, because I think sometimes people, they'll have a great product, or they'll know like one aspect of the business, but then there's these other bits like, oh, I've forgotten about that, or like I haven't. It's been interesting, like when I've added kind of links for the podcast, that people go, I am on Twitter, but I haven't been there since 2014, but like feel free to add the link, because it's just another thing to do sometimes.
Totally. It's so time consuming. So if I can help people work smarter rather than harder, just with a few little tips and tools, then all the better. And I think sometimes as well, it helps having an impartial person kind of look over it and give you some critique, because your friends and family are great, but they're still your friends and family. And I think, having someone who's not so close to the project can sometimes shed a little bit of light.
Yes, so good. Well, if people want to find you and come and have a chat and all that good stuff, where should they go?
Well, just my Instagram is probably the best place, at We Slice. And then if anyone wants to drop me a line, I would advise staying away from my DMs, because it's not an attractive place.
I thought you were going to give your phone number out then.
Little bit messy, little bit congested in there. So probably best to drop me an email, hello@weslice.com, and I can pick you up in there.
Lovely. Well, I've loved chatting, and let's see how Radio 2's future evolves. It'll be so good. But just keep doing what you're doing. You're bringing, a lot of sunshine to my life and many others, and saving the world. So thank you so much.
Nikki, thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. It's so kind of you.
You're welcome.
So kind of you to ask, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would love to hear what you thought of the episode and share any takeaways with me. Come and find me across social media at Nicky Raby, or you can visit the podcast page, nickyraby.com/podcast.